Physical training, self-defense training, firearms training, situational awareness, and the warrior mindset. Welcome to the Condition 1 podcast. This is a podcast where we'll be talking about Welcome to the Condition 1 podcast. This is a podcast where we'll be talking about being ready. We'll also be speaking to victim survivors of physical encounters, how they dealt with the aftermath, physically, mentally, and spiritually. And welcome to the Condition 1 podcast with your host, that's me, John Riddle. And today we are welcoming our guest, Gary Klugiewicz. Gary is first we go way back. Gary is a martial artist. He was a retired captain from the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office. He worked with ACME, it's Active Countermeasures, Tactical, Redman, Street Survival Seminars, HK, and Team 1. He's a contributor to Police 1, and it goes on and on and on. Just a little background on Gary and I. I met Gary back in, I want to say 1994. I was on a SWAT team at West Palm Beach Police, and during my short period of time on the team, we were doing a lot of work. We were a very busy team, and we were going into rooms, going to houses after bad guys, and everybody has a gun. And I noticed that a lot of people were not fighting with us. And a question came to mind is, okay, we have guns for the lethal force, but what do we do if nobody's fighting us? How do we put hands on people when we have these long guns and we have pistols in our hands and they're non-combative people? So I looked up the Redman section of police training, and I found a course for active countermeasures for tactical teams that was up at HK in Virginia. So the wheeling and dealing had to start, and I knew Gary was teaching the class, and I always kind of silently followed him. And he was like this guy I just admired so much. And I said, I got to go to this class. I got to go. And looked up the class. I think it was $500 for the class back then. And it was, okay, I go to my bosses. And of course, you know, the wheeling and dealing has to start. So it's, oh, we don't have the money to send you. I said, I'll tell you what, I will drive my pickup truck to Virginia. I will pay for the class if you just give me the time. All right, that sounds like a good deal. So off I go. I drive up to Virginia. Took me 2 days from West Palm Beach to get up there. Got myself a hotel, and lo and behold, spent 5 days of training in active countermeasures for tactical teams with Gary. And I don't know, we must have had about 20 officers in the class. And I remembered we did it in a trailer. It was like almost like, I guess, a double wide trailer where we set up these long tables, and they were the hallways or the doorways. And, you know, we went through a lot of very important training for what to do if we have to put hands on people in that atmosphere. Okay. So without any further ado, I want to bring my hero and my mentor on board, Mr. Gary Klugiewicz. Gary, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for inviting me, John.
So, does that sound about right?
Well, you know, it's amazing is that you go back down memory lane, and I remember one time you and I were at Kennedy Space Center.
Oh,
yeah. Beneath the shuttle, fighting in Redman suits, and I remember that forever. You know, it's quite a time there.
Yeah, that was a fantastic trip. You remember being under the shuttle. I remember sitting in the bed in the room with a 20-pound bag of ice under my leg after being knee struck, kicked, and taken down to the ground by 27 Kennedy Space Center SWAT guys.
Yeah, that's the price of doing business. But again, you know, if you aren't practicing it, you're not learning it. And everyone, when they leave here, you know, we get over, there's a sensory inhibition that, nobody wants to be touched or touchy buddy. Once you do one of our classes, man, you're used to being touched and touching someone, and you can knock somebody down when you need to. I think that's an important part of the class.
Absolutely. And one thing I did not mention, it just happened recently within the last month, is Gary was put into the Law Enforcement Trainers Hall of Fame, which is a huge honor, especially, he's taught all over the nation, and everybody that he's crossed paths with remembers him. They've learned a lot from him. So that was a well deserved position to be put in, man. Congratulations on that.
And again, I know we have lots to talk about, but I think it's real important just to mention that, people say, well, how did you get where you are? You must be just magnificent specimen of a human being. I said, no, I'm just a hardworking guy who's got a lot of breaks over the years, but I always was available to get in. So many people sit by a new defensive tactics instructor, and they sit by and say, put me in, coach. No, you put yourself in.
Right.
And and you develop yourself, and you do what you did down when you went to our first class. I can't tell how many times I did that.
Yeah.
And I did a funny story is that the people, I got to be pretty famous, and people would say, oh, my sheriff was at an event one time, and the sheriff Artisan, and the person said, oh, you're with Klugiewicz's department. And he goes, no, Klugiewicz was with my department. And so you have to remember that I read everything I learned. I went all over the country, did everything mostly on my own. They gave me the time. I'm mostly on my own expense.
Sure.
When I came back, I shared with my department, and that's how your department gets better, and you get safer, and you get a reputation as a great department because of things that individual people do and bring back and share.
Absolutely. 100% with you on that. I can't tell you how many thousands of dollars over my career that I had spent out of pocket to go and do something that I felt was important to bring back to the team, So I'm 100% on board with you there. Gary, you still have your hands in it with law enforcement. Also, you're also with hospitals, mental health facilities, and training all of these people on how to deal with conflict. Okay. And in law enforcement, as we know, law enforcement officers we deal in conflict all the time, right? We have to manage conflict. How do we manage conflict 20 years ago versus this, up to date? It's, especially today, as time goes on, everybody in the world knows our world is changing in law enforcement. Things are happening that aren't always on the best side of the line, but there's a hell of a lot of conflict going on. You sit and you turn the TV on, watch the news, and see what's going on around this country. These young officers, how are they being trained today versus how they were trained years ago?
Well, I think I'm going to go back to go back to the old days. In terms of kind of revisit officer survival, because when we got into the game, officer survival was winning the battle, winning the fight, knocking someone down, out shooting them, out fighting them, and surviving the encounter. But I did a lot of work over the years with Chuck Remsburg of Caliber Press fame. And we found out that it's not enough just to survive, because you can survive and still be a basket case.
Sure.
And so what we learned that we had to get more than that. When this is going back 20 years now, but now really being reinforced by the current events. But the issue is that we have to look at the fact that in order to prevail, it's more than just physical survival. You have to also, we call it the POLE acronym. Being Polish, Klugiewicz. I can say the POLE acronym, POLE. Is that, yes, it's physical survival. If we don't survive, it really doesn't matter. So you got to be surviving, right? You got that.
Yes.
But then you have to survive organizationally. If you're always getting in trouble with your agency or getting trouble with the public, and the public is having trouble with your agency, you're not going to survive long. So you have to survive organizationally. Then you have to be able to survive legally. We're talking about forget the criminal, just talk about the civil.
Yes.
Being sued civilly, and in federal civil, federal court, man, that's not pretty. Civil rights violation is not pretty. So you have to survive legally. But finally, and probably most of all, and it goes with the physical, you have to survive emotionally. And how many people do we know are basket cases? The suicide in law enforcement, alcoholism, divorce, all the things that are terrible about law enforcement because we haven't dealt with that emotional side. So our training has to be much more focused, not just on surviving the battle, but winning the war. And to do that, you have to think about physical, organizational, legal, and emotional safety.
Yes.
And to do that, how officers have to be trained then and now. It's a very different officers we have to train now. Now we're training different people, and you could argue about, oh man, you got to teach them how to fight. They don't fight. They talk too much. All that stuff. Forget that. I'm just talking about surviving this day and age. Is that we have to talk about how to train our officers to survive. Let's just talk about legally. The whole point is that that in the old days, you could get away with almost anything. I had several cases with your agency where the judge gave us a play because we didn't know or couldn't have known that was happening and something bad happened. Custody death, training accidents, the quote unquote malfunctions. Those used to be an accident. Now that you not didn't know, we should have known and should have prepared for that. And if you don't, we're going to be held accountable. I can't. We've already had people being charged criminally with custody deaths, but we also I can't wait till the first trainer gets charged with manslaughter because he allowed him to be shot in his classroom. Yeah. And we're getting very close to that point. They're civilly already, not necessarily criminal yet, but we're getting there. And so we have to change how we do business, and we also have to understand we have a different world out there, and we have to survive in a world. We have a great infographic we use. It's an iceberg. And it says, and the quote underneath says, the point of the matter is that if you don't change, you could end up in in an iceberg someplace. The reason some dinosaurs end up icebergs is because they don't change. We have to change, and we have to learn some things. Is that we always knew this, the golden rule to treat people like you like be treated in the same circumstances. But we know that rule, but we have to now start applying it. And again, one of our biggest things, you want to talk about officer survival in this day and age? I'm going to talk about what it is. We have to treat people with dignity and show them respect. And people go, well, that's not officer survival. Yeah, it is. Because if you don't treat people with dignity and show them respect, you're going to have a lot more fights. You're not going to be able to justify the fights. And you're going to have a jury of your peers that not are your peers, that don't know what you're doing, going to judge you after the fact. You don't want to have that happen. So to do that, you have to change how you do business. And so, it very much is that we have to change how we operate. And again, the biggest thing is our main, guiding principle is treat people with dignity by showing them respect. Yet you still have to train people to do everything. Right. We have to address the entire spectrum of human conflict. Yeah, the interpersonal discord, the conflict management, but also we still have to be able to win a gun battle. And so we have to have both, but we can't just emphasize on the gun battle. One of the biggest problems we have is that people think that the fight starts when they start shooting. No, the fight started way before that. You just didn't notice it.
Right.
When it was the first time you know there was a fight, well, you punched me in the nose. No, there was something happened before that you didn't pick up on. Yeah,
absolutely.
You got to pick up on it. And so we have to train our people to do that, to deal with the whole issue. So we have to emphasize the verbal, and that's something we never did before. We never really emphasized the verbal part of what we do. And so again, it's a huge issue, and that's why we do a lot of work now with conflict management. But here's the important thing for everyone, because if you have trainers listen to this, they're not going to have to train just police, but security. They're going to have to go to the hospitals, to civilian employees, and everybody has the same problem. It's the same person, just under different circumstances.
Right.
But everyone has different rules of engagement. What I should do. For most people, they just get out of Dodge. But for us, we got to move in when it's appropriate to do so.
Correct.
And we have to know how to do that. But when we move in, we want to still look good doing it.
Now, I know you're into, you start to teach into the mental health facilities and the hospitals. How does that, what you just talked about, how does that translate to them?
See, the whole point, everybody thinks it's different. It's exactly the same. It's the same person with the same attitude, with the same problems, with the same baggage, but to deal with the same people. So again, it's all the same. We have to learn how to start learning how, number one, how to, realize there is going to be conflict, recognize the conflict, learn how to prevent the conflict, how to make an interaction with someone so that we don't set them off. We've coined a new phrase. It's called non-escalation. Now, everybody in law enforcement, you get their de-escalation training, right? But the problem with de-escalation training is it assumes that you already have a fight starting, a verbal fight. So how can I not escalate it? And I say that's important at the front end and the back end, because when I say I did what I had to do, guess what? I want to say I started out nice. You decided not to be nice. We always use the Roadhouse quote. You got to be nice all the time, not to be nice, and you have to be nice again. People misconstrue that. No, you have to be really nice to people till it's time to take some kind of sanction against them based on their actions. And then afterwards, you have to be nice again. And we always kid around, but we aren't kidding. Is that after I've taken my action, had to physically interact with you, I'm going to get you the best medical attention money can buy. Because who loves you, takes care of you.
Right.
We do. You need to be knocked down. We were there for you. You needed to be fixed up. We were there for you. You need to be de-escalated. We were there for you, but you didn't listen. You know, we always talk about this concept. It's a really important concept. It's that you're not responsible for the outcomes. You're responsible for the process, because you still can have bad outcomes. And we can't surrender to the bad outcomes. I got that from Sheriff Lamb, who was at the Hall of Fame award ceremony. But he said, don't surrender to the outcomes. You can have a lot of bad outcomes, but you still have to try to do it right, and you have to do your best job to do that. Because if you don't, then when you get judged, you're going to have trouble. We've coined a phrase recently called the civilianization of law enforcement. We really do have to start doing with our words and what we say to people. The old words of force, takedowns, hook them up, knock them down, have to be gone, because you can be judged by a jury of not of your peers. So we have to fix it up. Physical intervention, decentralizations, stabilization are all terms. Yeah, because if we don't do that, as soon as you open your mouth, you've got a big problem. I was recently talking to someone recently, and they said, Gary, I need some help. We have this incident. Okay, we used force on this frequent flyer who was a homeless person. I said, you're already in trouble. You're already in trouble, because first of all, we don't use force anymore. We physically intervene. Okay, we don't have frequent flyers. We have people with cognitive challenges. We don't have homeless persons. We have a person who experienced homelessness. Do you see? It's my whole tone changed. My face changed. We're there as protectors. We're there as the peacekeepers. We're there the ones who have to keep everyone safe. And you can't do that if you go in with a snuffling dog mentality. Our job is to keep people safe. And to do that, the point of matter is that, and I want to make the point. We have an issue that and people don't get this, and they don't even know they're asking this question. But when a police officer or anyone else physically intervenes, they're going to ask 3 questions of them. It's called a brain picture. Okay, did the person look professional? Number 1. Number 2, did the person demonstrate concern, like they cared? And 3rd, did they keep everyone safe as they could based on the circumstances? Now, sometimes safe for a police officer, I have to shoot you, and then I have to get you the best medical attention money to buy. But the only way I could stop that threat is I had to do that. I had to knock you down. You got hurt. That's a terrible thing, but it's our job. We're the people that. But I want to just use an example for this, because people just don't get this. Well, what does that mean? That's all that theory. Let's talk about the George Floyd case. Okay, did the officers look professional? The brain picture of anybody, even another officer. Did they demonstrate concern for that person? Did they keep everyone safe? Let me ask this question. 1 person died and 4 officers are going to prison. Is that keeping everybody safe? And so the issue is, but really that brain picture is going to be there. So I want to be able to figure out how to, while keeping myself safe physically, I can legally keep myself safe, organizationally safe, keep myself safe, but also emotionally, that I go home and I said, I tried not to have to do it, but I had to do what I had to do. They gave me no choice. So I want to be able to do that. But the brain picture is something that's there. And if you ignore that, you're in trouble. And again, then you're a dinosaur waiting to get going to an iceberg someplace.
Yeah, man, this is good stuff. Our these young officers coming on these today, are they getting this? Are they getting this in the academy? Are they getting it in service training?
The answer is yes and no. The trouble is we have now is a lot of people, they like to check the box. Did you have de-escalation training? Yep, check it. What did you learn? Well, how did you de-escalate? Well, what did you do then? Well, I don't know. We just de-escalated. And some places are doing, but some people are doing a lot better job. In my department, for the last 10 years, we've been doing, the ethical intervention training. The whole state of Wisconsin does it because we realized how important it was that long ago. Jack Hoban from Resolution Group International has done a lot of work with us to develop how to do this ethical intervention. But the issue is that I just use that as an example. You're asking a question. Is that the trouble is if I say you should ethically intervene if someone's acting badly. Check. What's the chance of doing that in the real world under pressure? What you have to do is we have something we have to do fire talks. We have fire talks and fire drills. A fire talk is a lecture. That's checking the box. A fire drill is actually doing it. So when we teach ethical intervention, it's one aspect of it. We don't just talk about how to talk to somebody. We actually practice talking to them under pressure, doing it, and have them learn how to do that better. But also, we make that whole thing of ethical intervention, we make it a social contract. On our agency, we keep each other safe. We have a caring watch of each other. Not Big Brother, but a caring watch. And we're going to keep each other safe. And I just act that way. And again, in ethical intervention, I know we're going to do about a tangent, but I think it's important, is that you have your own ethical presence. You have when people come there, does things change? I will tell you that when I was assigned to the jail, when I walked up to the jail, all the security gates in the jail, I could hear them closing because they called from the front desk, oh, Klugiewicz is here. So all the gates were closed. When I was there, we didn't have lots of fights. Where someone else was there, a lot more fights. Why not? Because it just wasn't acceptable. It's your ethical presence. You change things for better or for worse. I was only accused one time of excessive force. And this kid was intoxicated. He fell in a booking room, split his head open. I found him next morning. He saw Klugiewicz, and they said it was me. My captain said to him, and this is back in 1982, right? But my captain said to him, Klugiewicz doesn't do stuff like that. Or would you rather your captain say, oh, no, not again?
Right.
So you have an ethical presence. But also you have to learn how to most of us have got this now, at least in theory, tapping someone out. Hey, Joe, you had a phone call. Can you take it? I'll cover it. I love a police agent I saw on the radio. It was a great thing. Is that this guy across the way, he goes, you have a radio on your shoulder, right? He goes, Joe, come over here. The captain wants to talk to you on the radio from the squad.
Yeah.
You need to get out of there. We need to tap people out. But also sometimes you need to literally move people out of the way. I can't tell you any time. I literally grabbed somebody and moved them out of the way. You need to be gone. And then what about but most officers who are good officers have done it. Okay, but then you have the whole issue of you have someone punching somebody. Now, once they punch somebody, we're in a world of hurt. But let's talk first. So we have to train people how to grab people and move them away so they can't punch somebody. Because once you punch that person, once you use that excessive force, once you start saying those derogatory terms to somebody, you are put in a trick bag.
Yes.
You're in a trick bag, and you have two difficult decisions to make. One right, one wrong, but both difficult. If I tell the truth of what I saw, I become a snitch, a rat. I'm sorry. In every profession, it's the same. So it's not police work.
Okay.
You're not with the program.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I pulled somebody off of somebody as a rookie, and no one talked to me for a month. My wife said, no, it was 2 months, Gary. No one talked to you for 2 months. But it didn't matter. No one had to teach me how to do that. But now we have to teach it because they don't got it. Okay, so you literally you may have to pull somebody off. And finally, you're gonna have to talk about this afterwards and debrief the whole incident. But you have to have that caring watch of each other. But it has to be fire drills, not fire talks.
Now, the fire talks and the fire drills, can that be when that's discussed, when that's worked in a training environment, can that be led into a scenario-based situation?
Oh, absolutely. You have to start with fire talks because they have to know. And we like to say you have to show what we're doing, explain it, and then put it in a tactical application. So everybody's got the picture. That's the lecture.
Right.
But then you have to go from there. You have to start practicing it first in the air by yourself, a blanket escort in the air by yourself, then on a person, then with some level, a little bit of struggling. Then you put it into an isolation exercise, which we all know about from simunitions and other places that do exercise. It's not a full-fledged scenario. I'm testing parts of it. So I'm seeing if you can put parts together, my talking and my intervention. Okay, then you finally put into the long-term, the high-level simulation. We go from beginning to end. The trouble we have in law enforcement, yes, if we do it right, is that we show them it, and then we do them in high-level simulations, and you wonder why you don't get it right.
You missed the middle.
Too much. You did more than the middle. You missed everything in the middle.
Yeah.
You had a beginning and the end, and where's the meat?
Yeah, exactly.
But see, everybody wants it. Well, you have to do this in 2 hours. Some things you can't do in 2 hours. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But then the issue is, let's just follow up on this ethical intervention. Let's say you're accused of doing something wrong, and this is a big issue that people don't get. This is that if they think you did something wrong, verbally, physically, violation of policy, they're going to ask you 3 questions. Now, sometimes they don't even know they're asking questions, but these are the 3 questions. The first question is this: did you forget to do what we taught you to do?
Right.
Now, we've all had that happen to us, especially as a rookie. I forgot all about it. Sorry. Okay. But then I'm gonna give you more training. A good department will give you more training, and it'll document this, because then I have that. Strike 1 is you forgot. Strike 2 is that you need more training. Strike 3 is a very important question. And when I ask this question, people's eyes get big. And I say, did you willfully and knowingly violate what we trained you to do?
Yeah.
I mean, but that's all we got left.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we have to look at this and realize is that I want to have answers to these questions. And so, the answers become, very, very, very easy. The answers are easy, because we've trained this. We got this, working with Caliber Press back in the 80s. You have to answer these questions. Was it a trained technique done perfectly the way it's taught in the workbook? Almost never happens.
Right.
So nothing is perfect, right? I mean, it just
dynamic applications.
Well, now you hit the second point, though. It is a dynamic application of a trained technique, which is the second point. Almost everything fits there.
Right.
It was close, but no cigar.
Right.
But I can say that I was actually trained to do it, and I did it when I was supposed to do it. We'll talk more about that in a moment. But finally, the third one is when it gets a little bit bizarre. The not trained but justifiable under the circumstances. You did something just bizarre out here. You're fighting for your life and you stuck a pen in your eye. Now, you're never trained to do that, but under the right set of circumstances, not trained but justifiable under circumstances, it could work. And I like to use this example from healthcare. A nurse is in a closet being choked out from behind by a mental health patient. She reaches in and grabs the mop wringer. She brings the mop wringer overhead and splits the guy's head wide open, knocks him unconscious. Now, I can't think of another time in the history of the world where that would be justifiable. But in that circumstance, it was totally what she was to be killed.
Sure.
But you just can't say, and see, here's the issue. You don't get to pick. The trained technique, dynamic application trained technique, or not trained but justifiable, is who evaluates you.
Gotcha. Okay.
Now, you want to make it fit.
Right. Yeah.
But so if you do something bizarre, you better make it fit. And I want to talk about policy. I want to know what policy is so I can maneuver within it. Or when I violate it, I can say why I violate. Because every policy is going to get violated sooner or later, and it can be justified under the right set of circumstances. But that's really important. And now there's as we move towards the end, I want to share some things that I think are very important. Is that you are going to get questioned about what you do, and you're going to have to go to court. And whether you're a police officer or a nurse or a teacher, it doesn't matter. You're going to have to get asked questions. And I want to give you 3 really important answers that can shut down plaintiff attorneys.
Okay.
And the first question is, what's your job? Now, we all think about this and have this long answer, but it's a short answer. My job is to keep everyone safe. Verbal if I can, physical if I must. I'm in the safety business. Can you imagine that saying that to an attorney? It shut them down. And I've done it before. You just shut people down because they don't want to ask the next question because the first one hurt them too bad.
Yeah. They're not used to that answer.
Yeah, they're not doing a good answer. They're used to having someone afraid up there. But see, I tell people you should put this on your arms as tattoos. So that's the first one, and put that. What's your job? Put that on your arm. The second answer is this: is that why did you do that? And here's the answer. If you can answer this way, I did what I was trained to do when I was trained to do it. But there's two parts of that. I did what I was trained to do when I was trained to do it. I'm trained to shoot people, but if I should have shot people, I can't use that as an excuse. But if I did exactly what I was trained to do when I was trained to do it, I'm giving them the department. You realize that all they want is the department. They want the money.
Yeah.
So give it to them early. This officer did exactly what I was trained to do when they're trained to do it. Well, yeah, that's me.
Yep.
It was reasonable. Objectively reasonable. I got that. Now, the third question is really important. In terms of, is that, can you do that? If you do something bizarre that's not in the norm, okay, it depends. That's it with the tattoo mark. It depends based on the totality of the circumstances. Can I do that? It depends based on the totality of the circumstances. And again, you have those three, the answers to those three questions there. You can solve a lot of your problems. You go into court because you'll be prepared to do what you need to do.
Excellent. Word choices. You said, who do you have to sell the response to?
And we addressed that a little bit before, but it's worth coming back to because it's so important. You got to sell it to a jury in parentheses, not of your peers.
They don't have.
And I'm talking about.
They don't know what you're doing. They don't have any idea of what you do in your job, right? So, is it specific wording that we have to use? Do you understand?
I answered that question. It's not. We do give you words. Takedown becomes decentralization. Mm-hmm. We decentralize someone.
Right. We
don't hook them up. We stabilize them.
Right.
So there are some words you use, but it's mostly I don't want to use out of the vernacular. Great example is a peace story. We do a lot of peace stories in our training about things are done right and we learn. Is that somebody says, just toss me into the back of the car. You're going to toss me into the back of the car? You see, I mean, no, sir, no. We have to check on your ID. We usually put you back in the car where we do that. We sit in the back of the car first. I apologize for saying it. I didn't mean it. And again, one of the things we have to do, very simple, is that in our training, we have to teach officers to apologize. Often that's all the person wants is an apology. One of the things that we talk about is that we talk about the whole issue of neutral welcomes. We can't say sir or ma'am anymore. Do I look like a sir to you? We can't even say good morning. I now say morning.
Yeah. So tell me what kind of morning to have.
A flight attendant just taught me this, and I just love it. Is have the rest of your day. Now think about it. I didn't say a good day or bad. Have the rest of your day. So I mean, it's everything. And really, at the beginning, don't ask somebody how's it going, because you may not want to hear.
Right.
And yet we do it all the time. But when we do that, you know how hard it is for me to not say sir or ma'am?
Oh, yeah.
I've done it for 40 years.
Yeah.
I've done it for 40 years. Mm-hmm. Okay. But then I apologize. Then we move on. And it's okay. It's really, I just deflect and move on. But everything we talked about today really is about how to keep everyone safer. Physically, organizationally, legally, and emotionally. And again, keep yourself safe and keep your community safe. Because our job is to keep your community safe.
100%. 100%. Going back, I just want to make sure people understand the definitions of a trained technique, a dynamic application of a trained technique, and a not trained but justifiable under circumstances.
Yeah, and again, it's extremely important. The number one, a trained technique is something you learn in the academy, you practice with no pressure. It's done perfectly. Every movement is perfect. Okay. Now it never happens. It never happens. Okay. So the point, but the issue is it is our classroom model, and you have to have a classroom model. What's perfect? Because without perfect, I can't say what's dynamic application. It's close but no cigar. Okay.
Yes.
It's important to understand it. The dynamic application is very simply how it's done in the real world. It's close, but I didn't get a chance to bring him all the way into my center to take out the slack to roll the ball. I grabbed him and threw my car. That's all I had time to do. But I was trying to do the great technique properly, and it was appropriate at the time, and I got him to the location. That's a dynamic application. The not trained but justifiable is the wild stuff, the stuff that's not trained in the academy, but maybe in terms of your survival, is what they do. And remember, and officers forget this sometimes. Everyone has a right to self-defense. Now, it's a legal right. Now, you may get fired for it. We do this a lot in healthcare. You have in healthcare, someone takes down somebody hard, they're probably going to get disciplined and terminated, perhaps. Okay, but it doesn't. You still have a right to self-defense. So the not trained but justifiable. You have to walk that walk to make him seem that based on a totality of the circumstances, no other time, it was the only reasonable thing to do. It is, and that's why I love the example of the mop ringer in the head.
Sure.
I mean, how many times did you practice in the academy? The show, explain, demonstrate, practice, isolation exercises, and full level simulations for not hitting somebody head with a mop ringer.
We got 25 mop ringers here. We're going to line up.
Yeah,
right.
but it's not. But again, but it's also the importance of understanding your policy. It's that I have to know how to dance within my policy, but also I have to know where I have to know when I violate policy. One of the things. And again, I share a short example. Years ago, I was a captain of jail, and they had we found a magazine laying in the jail, so we knew there was a gun there. There was at the time. This is back in the early '90s. There was a policy that said only the SWAT team can bring guns into the jail. Well, guess what? We brought guns into jail. I totally violated policy. Yet I could explain why. We thought we had a gun in there, and I'm sorry I couldn't call up the SWAT team.
Yeah.
No, we did call the SWAT team, but they would arrive in 50 minutes.
Right. Sure. So you have to do something in between that time.
Yeah, but you have to be able to explain that what I was trained to do wouldn't have worked at this time. None of my options were available to me, so I had to go outside of it, and it's okay. But see, we have to teach our officers not to be so afraid of the fact that they may violate policy and procedure, and so that they hurt themselves, because we're still judged by POLE, physical safety, organizational safety, legal safety, emotional safety. And again, we have to keep ourselves safe. And remember, safety begins with you. And this is one thing that's not changed over the years.
But I think too, in that situation where you're saying officers need to know, the policy. I think a lot of officers don't understand their policy. I
asked thousands of people, thousands, not hundreds. You have to understand, I've trained hundreds because of street survival.
Sure.
I've trained hundreds of thousands of people. And I will tell you, almost nobody in any class, if one person knows what the policy actually says, I'm shocked.
Yes.
They all tell me, well, the policy is something like. I said, no. If it's your job on the line, do you want it to be something like, or do you want to know what it says?
Yeah, it's your job and your life is on the line. You can violate that policy, you get fired, or you wind up going to prison.
Or be killed because you followed it.
Yeah, because it can go the other way, right? So yeah, no, 100%. But again, that's extremely important. But remember, and again, at the end, you don't get to answer the questions about training technique, dynamic application of training technique, and not trained but just under circumstances. That someone who's going to evaluate your performance is, and make sure when someone evaluates your performance, they know what your performance is. Because so many times, if someone, I didn't like what they did. I don't care what they like, what they did. Did they follow? I want you to look at the policy. Did they follow the policy? And someone in your agency has to be able to step up and do that, because otherwise bad things happen. Sure. Absolutely. All right. Gary, if anybody wanted to, any agencies or anybody wanted to get a hold of you, talk to you about this further, train with you, how can they get in touch with you?
Well, our website, the company I now work with and part of is Vistelar, Vistelar, Vistelar.com. And you can look it up there. We have all kinds of great stuff on that website. You can also, if you want to know more about me, go to my Facebook page, Klugiewicz Gary at Facebook.
Absolutely.
And you can also contact me directly at gklugiewicz@vistelar.com.
Excellent. Can you tell me a little bit about Vistelar?
Well, it's we started Vistelar over 10 years ago, and it was kind of interesting. Is that the three of us got together, myself, Dave Young, who's a well-known defensive tactics trainer, and Al Oschlager, who was a business guy, got together 10 years ago and started putting together a program that we wanted to be able to put out to the entire country to train people. And our biggest problem was everybody takes pieces of the pie where we address the entire spectrum of human conflict. So if you want interpersonal discord, for your teachers, we can do that. And if you want to send in a SWAT team, we can do that too. So we can do it all. Great. And so that's really what it does. And again, we very much believe in fire talks, as a beginning, but then a fire drill. That our classes are all basic. We now do both online and the live classes. And again, even our online classes are very interactive. We use a lot of breakout rooms, and so you actually practicing your techniques, even verbal online. Okay. But a lot of physical still have to be done physically. All through the pandemic, we're in face masks, temperature checks, and doing takedowns right there. Yeah. Not like somebody doing the weapon retention with a face mask on. But if you need physical training, it has to be physical. So that's what we do.
Excellent job. Okay, Gary, I want to thank you for coming on today. I appreciate your time. Again, because I know you, I've heard a lot of this before. A lot of it has changed, but it still makes sense, and that's important. And I think that anybody that's listening to this that's in the law enforcement or health organizations, working in hospitals or mental health facilities, need to get in touch with you and reach out to you with Vistelar and get some updated training so that they know that they're on board and they're protecting themselves and they're protecting their agencies.
Absolutely.
So thank you, Gary. I appreciate it. It was great seeing you again. All right, and I'll be in touch.
You got it.